Hey, thanks for checking out my channel. I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com, and this is a review of Stutz. This is a documentary currently on Netflix. It does have audio description. Barely, but it does have it. This is mostly a lot of talking anyway, so it's hard to interject. And there really isn't a whole lot of scene changing going on. It's a very low-key, simple documentary that Jonah Hill has made here. So the fact that when I say there's barely any audio description, somebody got a paycheck for this, and it was pretty sweet. It was pretty easy paycheck that had to do a whole lot of work. The writer probably was having panic attacks, like, is this enough? Did I put enough audio description in this film? It feels so very light, but I don't know where else to put audio description. It's like, yeah, I feel you. This film just doesn't really lend itself to being heavily audio described. There's only just so much you can do once you've described the two people predominantly in this film. And they kind of just sit there and talk back and forth. It's an interesting film. Jonah Hill has decided to make a documentary that he says is about his therapist, Dr. Stutz, Dr. Paul Stutz? Paul, one of those, it's a P word. And he makes the documentary over the course of years. So he even reveals his magic trick to the audience at one point, where he reveals that he's been having to wear a wig to mimic the hair that he had when he started the documentary, that he no longer has anymore, and it's all fake. And he wonders, what the purpose of it is. And he's like, we've made it look like we're shooting in a therapist's office, but really we're shooting in front of a green screen. And they have like a fake office set up. And I'm like, why? I mean, people who do actual documentaries, they go into actual people's offices and have actual conversations. Is it because you wanted to do this over a couple years that it felt weird for you to do that? To show a change of, he was trying to show consistency, to make it look like time hadn't elapsed as much. But for a documentary that's about honesty, it feels very weird. But he openly addresses that. So I don't know really what to do with that. I don't know what to do with this documentary, because some of my feelings about it, he openly addresses the problem with it. But then when he addresses the problem with it, he goes forward with the problem anyway. So it's like he recognizes that his documentary is problematic in the way that he's shaping it, but doesn't really change it. He's worried about the focus being on him. Because a lot of times in this therapy session back and forth with his therapist, he ends up talking a lot, and he ends up talking a lot about himself and his problems. And we see him getting analyzed and being given feedback, and this relationship that seems really cool between him and his therapist, back and forth that they have, that seems to be helping Jonah with his struggles. There were a couple times where I winced a little bit, and not to minimize Jonah Hill's mental health, but his therapist suffers from Parkinson's, and I can't tell how bad from visually, but he talks about his own struggles with his illness with Parkinson's, and how often doing menial tasks takes him a while because he has to think about doing it. Like just getting out of bed in the morning physically, literally takes him a hard time, because he has to think about how to operate his body, how to get, because Parkinson's isn't letting him function the way, and he says it's kind of like flopping out of bed. And he kind of describes what it's like, and Jonah just kind of chimes in. He's like, yeah, I had some really hard time getting out of bed too. And it's like, it's not the same thing. I mean, I don't want to minimize depression, because we all get we all have that, and a lot of things get diagnosed with that. I myself, but I don't think it's just the same thing. It's like walking up to somebody who's suffering from Alzheimer's while they're talking about, like forgetting things and being like, oh yeah, I forget where my keys are all the time. It's like, yeah, we forget things all the time, but when somebody's at such like a severe level of it, trying to like chime in with like, I feel you, bro, on something that's not really the same thing, just maybe kind of the presence of mind. I don't really know what to do with this documentary because I feel like I'm grading Jonah Hill's therapy. It's not really what this documentary was supposed to be. It's not really what Jonah Hill wanted this documentary to be. He wanted this documentary to be about his therapist and his specific methods, and maybe, sort of like a love letter to his therapist, and also allowing those methods to seep out into the world. And maybe this documentary could help somebody else who's struggling through something. Maybe there are certain methods, because he believes in giving people like a tool right away so that they can feel something instantly, so they know that they're capable of change immediately, rather than making them come session after session after session without feeling that like anything has changed. I don't know that he's the only one doing that's revolutionary, but Jonah Hill doesn't really explore anything else. He doesn't really talk about the history of psychology, psychiatry. That's not a word. And he didn't do a whole lot of background, so he just focuses on this one doctor and acts like this is a revolutionary method, but I don't know that it is. And he doesn't really... I realize there's a little bit of a patient-client confidentiality thing, and maybe no one else who's ever, who works with Dr. Stutz would want to participate in the film. But when you're making a film that's a love letter about somebody, it kind of helps to bring people other than just you in. It's a very odd documentary, and I feel like I'm grading Jonah Hill's therapy when I grade this film, which is very difficult for me. I love Jonah Hill. I think he's a terrific actor. I've loved him since the very beginning, all the way back since I Heart Huckabees. I know the story about how Jonah Hill got cast. I know he was Dustin Hoffman's son's roommate in college, and he was prank calling Dustin Hoffman. Dustin thought he was hilarious, got him an audition for I Heart Huckabees, which got his career started. I know all about Jonah Hill. I totally get it. He's probably one of my favorite actors. Like, if I see Jonah Hill in a movie, I'm like, done. It's the whole reason I watched this documentary, to be totally honest. I had no interest in this. And then I was like, oh, it's Jonah Hill. It's directed by Jonah Hill, too. Well, we'll see it, But at the end of the day, I don't think it ever is what Jonah wanted it to be, but he still made it anyway, and he still released it. I don't know if he's even happy with it. I don't know if this is the best worst case scenario, if it just snowballed away from him, because he does address the problems with his own film within the film, which is very unusual to see. Most directors would have never... No, I don't think anybody's ever done that, where they've come in and been like, I know the problems with my film. I don't know what to do about it, but these are the problems. I just don't know that anybody's ever done that before. But Jonah does that openly here, so what am I doing? I'm just agreeing with him? yeah, those are the problems. Why are you still doing it? It's like, why is this still a thing? I don't know. I don't know what to do. I think some people will enjoy this, and they'll get something out of it, because there are always people who are sort of looking for something on a spiritual journey, and there will be other people who think this is tedious. There are other people who will question the honesty and the truth behind this. It's something that Jonah runs a risk of by being an actor, bearing his soul on screen, is that we've seen him. He's a good actor, and I don't want to say that he's acting, but it's just it's a factor when you put yourself out there like that in a therapy session on camera. How honest are you really being? You know, is he holding back? Is he giving us what he thinks we want because he's also the director of the film? There's really a lot to unpack here. I kind of wish he wasn't in the film as well as directing the film. I wish he had been able to get somebody else to work with Stutz to show. He has Beanie, you know. I mean, he has other people that could have participated in this. So, it's a very. I think there are a lot of different ways this documentary could have gone, and he went the road much traveled, and it ended up being rocky and bumpy, and lots of holes in the road from where people had traveled before, and he just walked right through all of the mistakes and accepted them for what they were and didn't see them coming, you know? So with all of that, like I said, there is audio description here, but it is just mostly two people talking back and forth, and they don't really sit, and they go out of their way to not change their clothing, which is what Jonah Hill even addresses, are the minimal amount of costume changes that they do and the minimal amount of set. He's built a constant set. There really is not much an audio narrator can do during this film. There really isn't. You know, there's his mom comes in and joins in one scene, but there's not a lot here. So I don't blame the narrators. It's just it's a film where you kind of describe it and you're done. Like, there's really nothing else you can do about it. And it just goes, and you just hear people talking back and forth. It's not the most interesting thing in the world. It currently has an 8.3 on IMDb. However, I'm reviewing this the day after. I don't know that I'll post this the day after, but I did see it the day it came out. So I'm doing this review immediately after. So I don't know how many people have actually seen it, but I would be surprised if the score stayed that high. Anyway, that's it. That's everything I got. I'm going to give Stutz a C-. I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm grading Jonah Hill's therapy, and I don't know what to do about that. But I didn't really care for the film. I thought, even though he addresses the messes are still there. You know, when you address and you're like, oh man, there's trash on the floor. Yeah, there is. What are we going to do about it? I don't know. I guess we'll leave it there. No, you clean up the trash once you know it's there. Anyway, thanks for staying through the review. Hopefully this wasn't, you know, your favorite film of the year and it didn't reach and touch you in a very specific way. You know, the guy seems really cool, and his life story is cool, and there are parts of it that I'm really glad I got to see, which is why this is not totally in the thing, but it's just, as far as the documentary goes, I just don't know. So thanks for staying. I hope you think about subscribing. I'm trying to get to 100 by the end of the year, and I think that would be great to be in the triple digits. I'm 16 away. I also have a website, macmovieguy.com. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org. It'll let you know what has audio description and where you can watch it. And you can go to the adna.org. That's the adna.org. It'll let you know who is narrating your favorite films. That is it for me today. I could go review something else for you guys, but I will see you on the other side.